why winning custody is the fastest way to hurt your case. There is no such thing as winning custody, and treating it like a battle can quietly hurt your case even before it starts. Let's clear something up right away. There is no such thing as winning custody. I know that's not what people expect to hear, but one of the biggest mistakes parents make in custody cases is treating it like a battle with a scoreboard. When the focus shifts to beating the other parent, it often distracts from the question the court actually cares about, which is what arrangement best supports the child. That mindset can quietly hurt your case before it even starts. In reality, most custody outcomes involve trade-offs. Different arrangements come with different responsibilities, schedules, and expectations for parents. Each outcome has its own costs and benefits, and the court is usually trying to find a structure that works in the real world rather than declaring one parent the winner. Hi, I'm Lindsey Egan, founder and owner of Poppy Legal Group. I help people all across Massachusetts navigate child custody and co-parenting issues when real life gets complicated and emotions run high. And today, I want to talk about how child custody is actually decided in Massachusetts and why a lot of what people assume is just flat out wrong. If this kind of clarity is helpful, follow along. I share honest guidance like this all the time. Okay, so the biggest mistake people make in custody cases. The biggest mistake parents are making these days is focusing on the other parent instead of focusing on the child. Who messed up? Who deserves what? Who should lose? Here's the explicit answer to the question people don't ask out loud. Yes, this absolutely makes you less likely to get what you want, even if you have a pit bull lawyer. When a case is framed around blame, judges see higher conflict, higher risk, and more future litigation. That makes them cautious. Cautious judges limit discretion, reduce flexibility, and often fall back on safer, more conservative orders. Massachusetts courts are not impressed by aggression. They are assessing judgment. If your case sounds like a personal vendetta instead of a child-centered plan, the court is less likely to trust you with decision-making authority, regardless of how wrong the other parent might be. So how child custody is actually determined in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, custody is legally determined by the child's best interests. We hear that a lot. But here's the practical truth behind that phrase. Judges look at stability first, then functionality, then risk. They consider things like which parent has historically handled the day-to-day care and oversight, how stable the child's routine is right now, each parent's ability to communicate and reduce that conflict, and whether a proposed change improves the child's life or just shifts the power. There is no statute that favors mothers over fathers. Gender is not the legal standard. Now, the honest part. Outcomes sometimes appear biased because courts often preserve the status quo when it's working. If one parent has been doing most of the caregiving, the court may just stick with that arrangement, not because of gender, but because sometimes disruption has consequences. Courts prioritize continuity over fairness between adults. Okay, so who is most likely to get custody, really? This is also where a lot of misinformation lives. There is no default winner. There is no parent who automatically has better odds. Massachusetts courts do not start from the assumption that one parent is more important than the other. Instead, judges look closely at what has actually been happening in that child's life. Who has been involved day to day, how decisions are being made, and whether the current structure supports stability. Courts often pay attention to things like involvement in school and activities, consistency with schedules, communication between parents, and each parent's ability to put the child's needs ahead of the conflict. This is important. In other words, the court is really just trying to understand how the child's life is actually functioning, not just what each parent says that parent wants. Another important factor is the ability to co-parent when possible. A parent who shows a willingness to cooperate, communicate, and support the child's relationship with the other parent, and trust me, I know sometimes that is super hard, but they often appear more credible to the court than someone who treats the situation just like a fight to be won. So the better question is not who wins custody, but what arrangement best supports the child's life right now. That shift in thinking does matter because custody decisions are usually about building a workable structure for the future, not declaring one parent the winner and the other, by default, the loser. Okay, so chances of fathers getting custody in Massachusetts. Fathers are legally on equal footing in Massachusetts. That part is true. But equality under the law does not erase history. Courts are going to look at who has been consistently present, who understands the child's needs, and who can maintain stability going forward. Are there individual judges who bring personal bias into the courtroom? Yes, judges are human, but systemic bias against fathers is not how the system is designed to operate. What usually happens instead is comparison. The court is choosing between two imperfect, parents. If one parent appears more reliable, more prepared, or less disruptive, that parent often prevails, regardless of gender. Sometimes it looks like bias. More often, it's about relative risk. Okay, so what are the chances of fathers getting custody in Massachusetts? Fathers are legally on equal footing in Massachusetts. That part is true. But equality under the law does not erase history. Courts look closely at who has been actually involved in the child's life, who understands the child's day-to-day needs, and who is most likely to maintain stability going forward. Are there individual judges who bring personal perspectives into the courtroom? Of course, judges are human, but systemic bias against fathers is not how the law is designed to operate. The legal standard focuses on the child's best interest, not the parent's gender. What usually happens instead is a comparison of sorts. The court is often choosing between two imperfect parents. Judges tend to focus on patterns that show things like reliability and involvement, things like who handle the school's issues, medical appointments, daily routines, and communications with the child. Some factors can carry more weight than others, too. Consistent caregiving, reliability with schedules, and the ability to support the child's stability often matter more than simply income alone. So, for example, a high earning parent who has been largely absent from the child's daily life may not automatically have an advantage over that parent who has been consistently present, even if that parent has fewer financial resources. Courts are also aware that parents naturally present themselves in the best possible light to the court. Because of that, outside information can sometimes become important. So, testimony or records from people like teachers, counselors, medical providers, coaches, or other neutral people involved in the child's life can help the court understand what daily life actually looks like for that child. Sometimes a decision may look like bias from the outside. More often, it just comes down to which parent appears more reliable, more involved, and simply more capable of maintaining stability for the child over time. So, shared legal custody and what that really means. Shared legal custody does not mean everything is 50-50 all the time. It means both parents have a say in major, I call them big ticket items, like education, medical care, and religion. It requires communication, and it requires the ability to work together, at least at a basic level. In practice, shared legal custody usually means parents exchange information and need to consult each other before making those big ticket, major important decisions that affect the child's long-term well-being. Day-to-day decisions like bedtime, meals, or routine activities are typically simply just handled by whichever parent the child is with at that time or has what's called that parenting time. It also does not mean parents must agree on everything. Can you imagine? Disagreements happen. What courts are usually looking for is whether the parents can still communicate, share information, and make decisions without constant conflict or gridlock. When communication breaks down completely, and it can, shared legal custody can become difficult to manage because this structure assumes that both parents are able to participate in those major big ticket decisions. Understanding that helps set realistic expectations about what shared legal custody actually requires in real life. So, a quick note on unmarried parents and emergency custody. For unmarried parents, the same best interest standard applies. Emergency custody is different and also very narrowly applied. Courts reserve it for situations where waiting would put a child in immediate danger. So some examples could include domestic violence or credible threats of harm, serious substance abuse that's affecting caregiving of that child, untreated mental health crises that impact safety, abandonment or sudden disappearance, and unsafe or unstable living conditions. Strong emotions do not equal emergencies. Fear has to be supported by evidence. Filing an emergency motion without a true emergency can absolutely damage credibility and hurt your broader case. So, child custody cases are not about winning or losing. They're about building a plan that actually works for that specific child's life. When parents understand how courts really think, they make better decisions and avoid a lot of that unnecessary stress. If you're facing a custody issue and want help understanding your options, you can book a consult online. We'll talk through your situation calmly, answer your questions honestly, and focus on what makes sense for you moving forward.